Today I'm going to show you how to use basic linear perspective. Linear perspective is when we can create the illusion of space to make it look like our drawing is showing space where we see the world as it is in real life. And to do this, we're going to be creating a linear perspective city. If you have a ruler, I encourage you to use a ruler. If you don't, you can use any straight edge. So this folder has a nice straight edge, so I can use this folder instead of a ruler if I need to. When we're starting, we want to orient or turn our paper horizontally. And close to the top, not all the way up, but about 3/4 or 2/3 of the way up, we're going to create a horizon line. Remember that the horizon line is the line that separates the ground from space, from the sky, from the air around us. I'm going to hold this folder flat, and I'm going to make a light line. If my folder or ruler doesn't go all the way across the paper, I'm just going to line that up again and continue the line over. And about the middle of the horizon line, I want to make a dot or a point. That dot or point is called the vanishing point. That is the area where that's the point where all of our lines for linear perspective seem to disappear into that line. Next, I'm going to use my straight edge, my ruler, or in this case, this folder, to make two diagonal lines that go from the bottom edge of the paper and stop at the vanishing point. I want to try to make them about the same angle. So I want to come about the same distance from the edge of my paper and make these diagonal lines. And it's going to create a triangle that sits on the bottom edge of the paper and stops at the vanishing point. I'm going to go back and use the ruler. It's a little easier because it's not as wide, but again, any straight edge will work. On the right side, close to the bottom edge of the paper, I'm going to create a rectangle. I want to make sure that my lines are vertical and horizontal. So I'm going to use my eyes just to judge the space between the edge of the ruler and the bottom of the paper. From the edge of the ruler to the edge of the paper. And again, I want this rectangle to be up off the bottom edge of the paper. This is where we're going to use linear perspective. Also make sure there's some distance between the corner of the rectangle or square and our diagonal line that's going to the vanishing point. I'm going to start at this bottom corner, and with my ruler or straight edge, I'm going to touch the corner of the rectangle and also the vanishing point on the same edge of the ruler or my straight edge. And I'm going to draw a short line. Now I'm going to go to the top left corner of the rectangle, touch the vanishing point, touching the corner of the rectangle, making sure they're on the same edge, and I'm going to make another short line. To connect these two diagonal lines, I'm going to use a vertical. I don't want to just go to the end of the lines because one of them might be too long or too short. I want to make a nice vertical line. Again, judging the space between my straight edge and the edge of the paper. And if I have any extra line to erase, I can erase that. These lines that are pointing from our corners to the vanishing point are called convergence lines. Converge means to come together, and these lines are all meeting at the vanishing point. We don't draw the line all the way to the vanishing point because the line continues even without it being there. So remember, we're cutting the lines off before we get to the vanishing point. Next, I'm going to go to this outside top right corner, lining up my straight edge with the corner and the vanishing point, and I'm going to make another line. The last thing we want to do is to use a horizontal line to connect this corner with this line. I can use my eye and judge the straight edge along the top of the paper, along the bottom, to make sure that that's a nice horizontal line. And any lines that I've drawn too long can be erased. And here we see a rectangular prism that is going back into space. So with linear perspective, I'm going to go to this other side of the paper, and I'm going to create and draw another rectangle. Again, I want to use my eye along the edge of the paper to make sure that I have a nice vertical line, that space looks the same. I'm going to make this one a little taller. I don't want to touch one of my first convergence lines here. This is like our road in our city. I want to make sure that I have horizontal lines at the top and bottom. Again, using my eye to judge the space between the horizon line and the ruler, the top of the paper and the ruler. And I want to finish off with a vertical line on the side. And if I have any leftover extra lines, I can erase those. Now I want to do the same process that I did on the right side of the paper, but now I'll be going the opposite direction, always going toward the vanishing point. I'm going to start at the bottom corner, touching the bottom corner and the vanishing point with the straight edge, and making sure that they are both on the same side of my ruler or straight edge. And here I'm going to draw a diagonal convergence line. From this corner, top right, to the vanishing point, I'm going to draw my second line. To connect these two lines, remember I need a vertical line. I don't want to line up my ruler with the end of each of these lines because that is diagonal. This space is narrower and that space is wider at the top. So I know that that's not a good vertical line. So I'm going to go to the end of my shorter line, make sure that I have the same space, and draw my vertical. And erase that extra line. Now I go from my top left corner. Again, all of our lines from our rectangles to create these prisms go from the corner to the vanishing point. The angle of these diagonal lines changes as we work. I don't want to connect these two lines because that's diagonal. I want to use a horizontal line to connect the back of the prism. And if I have any extra line, I can erase. I want to add some more prisms in my work, and I can think of these as buildings now that I'm starting to draw my linear perspective drawing. In order to create some overlapping, we want to think about our work this way. As we go farther away from the prisms the buildings in the front of our artwork here in the foreground, we want to make sure that we're drawing those rectangles above the back corner. And in order to create overlapping, I am going to not draw through the prisms in the front. Again, my rectangles being drawn with horizontal and vertical lines. I stopped the line here at the edge of that building. I'm going to make this one go a little bit further to the right. Making sure I have a nice vertical line before I draw the line and stop at the top of the prism that's in front. So the corner of this rectangle is going to be somewhere about here. I can't see through this building, so I don't want to have that line continue through. I'm going to start at the bottom corner, lining up with the vanishing point, making sure they're on the same edge of my ruler or straight edge. And I'll draw a short line. Moving to the top corner, lining up my corner with the vanishing point, another short line. Making sure that when I connect these two lines, I'm using a vertical line. Erasing any extra lines that I have. Going to this back corner, lining up my straight edge with the corner and the vanishing point, and finishing off the back of the top with a nice horizontal line and erasing any extra lines that I have. We're going to repeat this on the left side. Here I need to make this line a little longer so that I can meet with my back corner of the prism. I did that slightly out of order than I had drawn the previous three, but I can fix it. I'm going to draw one more higher up, and we're going to notice that if the rectangle that we start with goes above the horizon line, we won't see the top of that prism. I want to erase the horizon line because I can't see through this building. Here we're seeing that the top of the building of this rectangular prism, this top corner, the convergence line, still has to point toward our vanishing point, so it is going the opposite direction of these other lines. And we don't see the top because it's taller than our eye level or our horizon line. Here I have to guess at where my corner is. I know that the corner has to be higher than this line, so I'm going to imagine that that corner is right here. Again, we do not see the top of this prism, this building, because the top of the rectangle that we started with is above the horizon line. This is part one of linear perspective. We want to make sure that we can draw 6 rectangular prisms, all with our convergence lines going toward the vanishing point. And here we can already see, we can imagine ourselves standing on a street and looking down the street and seeing these buildings. Next, I will discuss with you and show you how to create details on these rectangular prisms to make them look more like buildings.